where I want to start is I want to start playing with some possibilities with you. And so what I would like you to do is I would invite you to close your eyes, and I want you to conjure up an image of an idea. Now, this might be an idea that you've thought up somewhere along your career, an idea that you have a hunch and an intuition would improve learning, it would improve education in some way. It might be an idea that you've seen in other industries, or it might be a totally new idea that you've actually never seen in practice. Now, this idea that you have might be on the edge of being slightly crazy. So crazy, in fact, that you find yourself not really wanting to share it with anybody else. Others may laugh when they hear the idea, or you're not quite sure if there's any merit to it. You try to push the idea away, but somehow it lingers. Does everybody have an idea in mind? And if so, I'm going to invite you to rejoin me. You can open your eyes, but I want you to keep that idea and sort of hold it lightly during our time together. And I want to share with you a story about crazy ideas and possibilities, and really the power of possibilities if we play and nurture our fragile ideas. Now, I grew up in Southern California. My father was a lineman for Southern California Edison, and I'm sure like all little girls, I looked up to my dad. I especially thought it was cool as a child that he was an electrical lineman. I don't know why. There's no status associated with this job, but I can still remember him coming home from work. Electrical linemen always wear long-sleeve flannel shirts and boots, and there was just something really cool knowing that my dad was out there keeping the electricity on. Electrical linemen, they climb poles, they work with high voltage, and it always intrigued me. 24 hours a day, electrical linemen are out there working. Rain or shine, it doesn't matter the weather. So I was super intrigued growing up with a lineman as a father to learn of a story in the Pacific Northwest. Now, there's this power company, Pacific Power and Light, and they provide service in the Pacific Northwest Cascade Mountains. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, they have a problem. And the problem is bad weather. And if you can imagine, in the fall and the spring, this created a really intense situation on the electrical lines. The ice would hang on the lines, and it would actually break the power lines and make it nearly impossible to restore power for their customers. And so they would have to send their electrical linemen out to de-ice the lines. Well, you can imagine that wasn't really a job that anybody liked to do. Not only did the electrical linemen absolutely hate going out there, it was also super dangerous. And so at one point, PP&L decided they needed to come up with a better solution. So they pulled together a group of linemen, pulled together some of their office staff, and said, we've got to come up with a better way to do this. And as they were starting their meeting, one of the linemen started joking and, was complaining about how awful it was. And another lineman piped up and said, are you kidding me? Not only is it dangerous out there, but last time I was out there, I came face to face with a bear, and I had to run for almost a mile. Well, of course, this inspired more stories and storytelling, and one of the linemen shouted out, very jokingly and in jest, well, what if we just trained the bears to shake the lines? And you can imagine the room exploded in laughter, and somebody said, well, that's ridiculous. You can't train bears to go shake electrical poles. Well, somebody else chimed in, and they said, yeah, but what if we could put honey on the poles? So now we're going to go out and put honey on top of the electrical poles to get the bears to de-ice them for us. Like, this is getting ridiculous. And another person chimed in and said, we could put honey pots on the top of the pole, because then the bears would have to climb up, and just their sheer weight, that would cause the ice to fall off. Well, this is getting outlandish, and you can imagine the supervisor just wants to shut this down and get to the heart of the meeting. But one last person chimed in and said, I know what we'll do. We'll get helicopters. And the helicopters will fly over the transmission lines, and they'll drop the honey pots on top of the poles so the bears can climb up the poles and shake the ice off. And again, the room exploded in laughter. But then one secretary spoke up. She happened to be sitting in the back of the room, and she said, I was actually an Army nurse. And when I was on base and we had injured patients, I remember the helicopters would come, and the helicopters would land, and when the helicopters landed, there was so much downwash and dust from the vibration of the helicopter landing. And when she said this, the room just went silent. Everybody knew they had found their solution. Helicopters would fly over the power lines and shake the ice off the lines. And to this day, that is still their solution. They fly in the fall and the spring, after they've had an ice storm, they'll fly a helicopter very low, and the vibrations will shake the ice off. Now, what's interesting to me about that is it's an incredible solution, one that they may never have come up with if they didn't play and entertain bears, honey pots, and helicopters. And I wonder, when I heard this story, it made me wonder what ideas are just hiding in plain sight in our schools. And what would be possible if we were able to sort of tease out the good ideas from the crazy ideas? And it's interesting to me, in the work that I do, I have the opportunity to work with incredible educational leaders all across the country. And I'm always impressed by their dedication, their talent, and their knowledge. And at the same time, I find myself a little bit saddened by our collective ability to play in education. I find that in education, we invite our inner critics to the table a little too early. We silence those ideas before they ever have time to sort of nurture and grow. And it strikes me even more, sometimes I'll have conversations with leaders and I'll say, well, what would you create if you could create anything in the world for students? What would you do if you could create incredible learning experiences? And sometimes I get a blank face. And I find this frightening because if we don't know what we could do, as Russell Acuff shared with us, if we don't know what we could do, if we could do whatever we wanted, then how in the world will we ever know what to do when we have constraints? And so I want you to think about this and think about your stance towards the possible. What is your own personal stance towards the possible? When somebody brings you a wild and crazy idea, where do you find yourself on that yes-o-meter? Do you find yourself wanting to nurture the idea and play with the idea? Or do you find yourself in a space of wanting to say something that is all too common in education? And that is the phrase, yeah, but. Yeah, but is an idea killer. And here's why. You've likely been on the receiving end of a yeah, but if you've ever come up with an incredible idea and you want to share it with somebody, you have all this excitement, you're sharing the idea, and there's two words that can kill the idea faster than anything else. Yeah, but. The yeah makes it sound like people agree with you, right? It's a good idea. And then the but negates any forward motion towards that idea. And we do it all the time when we have new ideas in education. Yeah, but we don't have time. Yeah, but we don't have resources. Yeah, but we already tried that and it didn't work. And I wonder what would happen in education if we could actually replace those phrases with more nurturing phrases. That's an interesting idea. Tell me more. Or you can borrow one of my favorite phrases from a friend and colleague, Gaynell. Now, Gaynell was a principal in central Vermont, high school principal. She was sitting in her office one day, and one of her teachers walked in, and the teacher said, "Gaynell, I want honeybees on campus." Now, I don't know about you, but as a former principal, hearing a teacher say, "I want to bring bees on campus," like my mind automatically goes to like chaos, liability forms, my superintendent saying no, somebody getting stung, right? And Gaynell chose to silence all of those yeah buts. And she had a very affirmative response. She looked at her teacher, knowing that her teacher would only propose ideas that were good for kids. And she said to her teacher, "Tell me what I need to know to say yes." That simple affirmative response allowed her teacher, Sam, to share all of the research and information gathering that she had done. Now, Sam was a biology teacher. She wanted to start a kitchen chemistry elective class. She also wanted to make learning relevant for kids and connect it to the environment. So we all know that bees are a dying resource, and it was a way that she could not only teach students about the environment, but she could also teach them some skills about beekeeping. Sam had done her homework. She walked the campus, she met with a beekeeper, and with Gaynell's help, they went to the superintendent and they proposed bringing honeybees to campus. Now, it wasn't the favorite idea for the superintendent, but nonetheless, he went along with it. Honeybees came to campus. The students were involved in everything from building the racks to creating the smoker. And in the beginning of the year, it was a hit. Students were asking, "How can I get involved? Can we have a club around bees? Do I have to take kitchen chemistry to be involved with the beekeeping on campus?" It was a success. A success that none of that would have happened had Gaynell not chose to have a stance towards what's possible. So I want to invite you to shift your stance to what's possible. And I want to share with you 3 ways, 3 phrases that will help you do that, that'll help you nurture those wild and crazy ideas that exist not only in your colleagues and your teachers, but also in your students. And see if together we can't shift the collective stance of what's possible in education. So here's 3 phrases that'll help you shift the stance. The first one is a very simple yes and. Creativity is fueled by inspiring words and actions. And simply building on somebody else's good idea can give it life and can nurture it. It can actually help it turn into something. The second one, these are probably my 2 favorite words when put together, are what if. And the reason that what if is so powerful is because it opens up a world of possibilities. One person asking what if is intriguing, but a collective room of educators and thought leaders asking what if is incredibly powerful. And the third phrase that I want to encourage you to use is how might we? The how implies that you're willing to dive into new territory, into territory that's not been discovered. The might means you're open to possibilities. It might work, it might not work. And the we means that you're going to do it together. 3 simple phrases that can help you shift your stance to what's possible. I encourage you to use those phrases. And even more, what I want you to do is I want you to bring back that idea that you thought of when we started our time together. And I'm going to encourage you tonight and over the next 2 days to share that idea with somebody else here at Fuse. The reason for that is your idea, just like the bears and the honey pots, it might spark something in somebody else. And I want to further challenge you when somebody else in this room takes a risk and they share an idea with you, see if you can challenge yourself to use these 3 phrases and shift your stance to what's possible. Thank you.